fall flat? What makes an idea go viral? This was the phenomenon that journalist and writer Malcolm Gladwell explored in his immensely popular debut book, The Tipping Point, in 2000. Now, nearly a quarter of a century later, he has revisited many of the themes of that first book in a fascinating new one, Revenge of the Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Freed. Happy to be here.
So you've done something very unusual. I can't think of a famous author who has done this. You've revisited your most famous book, The Tipping Point. I don't know, do you even know how many copies it sold around the world?
A fair number, yes.
I mean, in the millions and millions and millions. Why did you do it?
Well, it was the 25th anniversary, and I thought, why not? That's sort of fun. And you're right, I hadn't heard of another writer. You know, people do sequels, but they do them right away. I hadn't heard of someone going back a quarter century. So I just thought it would be fun. And when I reread the original one, I just realized I didn't want, the original day was just to kind of update it. And I thought, no. I felt there was room for a lot more kind of complexity and nuance.
You have a great chapter called The Mysterious Case of the Harvard Women's Rugby Team. What is that about?
I could not resist. You know, I have an unhealthy obsession with what's wrong with the Ivy League. So I was trying to answer the question of why does Harvard compete in more varsity sports than any other college in the country? And why do they give greater preferences at admissions to athletes than to any other group, right? Doesn't make any sense. You would say, if I told you that was true of Clemson, you would say that makes, no, it's not Clemson that's unhealthily obsessed with athletics, it's Harvard. The question is why? And I concoct this elaborate explanation to explain Harvard's behavior. I think either explicitly or implicitly, they're using athletes in sports, you know, who are participating in, let's be clear, upper middle class sports like fencing and lacrosse and sailing and rowing. They're using them to keep the Harvard culture intact. In other words, if you look at Caltech 100 years ago was a WASPy school. 50 years ago was a Jewish school, and now it's an Asian school. It's a meritocracy, and it just changes completely with every new meritocratic wave. And my prediction is in 20 years, it's a Nigerian school, right? It makes sense. But if you don't want that to happen, you have to take steps, Machiavellian steps, to demand Harvard didn't want the Jews to take over in the 20s. They didn't want the Asians to take over in the 90s and aughts. And they don't want, I'm guessing, the Nigerians to take over.
And you make the point that, you know, the one of the central activities of the American establishment is social engineering.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I mean controlling who gets in and out. And I don't, in a kind of gross 19th century kind of way, I think that there is still very much an attempt by certain institutions in this society to police who gets in, and to be on some level quite Machiavellian in what their makeup or how they keep their culture intact. That's really the issue here. I don't know whether I wouldn't call it racism. I would say it's something else. There's a certain thing called Harvardness or Yaleness or Princetonness that those schools are anxious to hold on to, and that means that they don't want to just let in every immigrant off the boat.
Do you think that these kind of mechanisms account for some of the animosity, the outrage that people feel mostly on the MAGA right toward urban liberals, these institutions?
Yeah, I mean, I noted today, absolutely. I noted that California banned legacy admissions at all California schools. And legacy admissions are, I mean, the kind of thing that would inflame an outsider trying to climb the ranks. Why would we stay? Adam Grant has a wonderful idea, which was he thinks that legacy admissions should work in the opposite way. If you have a parent who went to Harvard, that should be a strike against you because you've already benefited from Harvard. So why would they need to? You should have to go back to the back of the line. I think that's actually a brilliant idea. But no, it's that kind of thing. The kind of obviousness with which they are rewarding people with privilege if there's something that is absolutely central to what America is, I believe that America has had the promise of, had a bolder and clearer promise of meritocracy than any other industrialized country in history. And we need to defend that. And to the extent we let that erode, it is to our great detriment.
I have to let you go, but I want to point out that it's an amazing book, and it's an amazing thing that you tried to do, which was to go back, and we haven't talked about them, but there are places where you say you were dead wrong, and you own that, and you talk about why. Look, all your books are fascinating, but this, for a Gladwell fan, this is a must read.
Thank you, Fred.
Next on GPS, remember Iraq, where America was mired in conflict for more than 20 years? It often seems forgotten, but Iraq holds an important place in the Middle East, and we should all be paying more attention to it. When we come back, my conversation with that country's prime minister.